United States Army airfield, these miniature planes are undergoing final tests before becoming target planes for aerial gunners. A parachute is carefully packed and placed in a special compartment in the fuselage. Now the completely assembled planes are ready to take the air from the catapult launching ramp. Radio control permits the operator to work the plane's controls exactly as a pilot would. Air gunners pour bullets at the miniature plane. When hit, the tiny plane's parachute is released by radio, and the delicate machine is gently floated to Earth. Through training techniques such as this, American gunners became the nemesis of Japanese suicide attackers. Though damaged, this target will be repaired to fly again. Gyeongsang, capital city of Korea. For more than a generation, an unwilling subject of the Japanese Empire. Now, troops of the United States 7th Infantry Division enter the city, and the populace rejoices. Korean Capitol building, all Japanese troops and equipment in Korea are formally surrendered. United States General John R. Hodge accepts for the United Nations. The Japanese flag comes down. 23 million Koreans achieved the freedom from Japanese oppression against which they had never ceased to fight. Tojo, Japan's war premier, lies near death in Yokohama. American officials come to arrest the former dictator, found beside him the ceremonial dagger and sword, traditional weapons of suicide. But instead, Tojo used a pistol, an American .32 caliber automatic. Taken to the 98th Evacuation Hospital, Tojo receives medical care to save him for trial as a war criminal. An American sergeant, veteran of New Guinea, volunteers a pint of his blood so that Tojo may be held for trial as one of the war's arch criminals. 3 previous plasma transfusions had failed, but today Tojo is on the way to recovery. Scorned by his countrymen for bungling his suicide, hated by free people all over the world, Tojo can look forward only to stern United Nations justice. Horses of Canada's vast western prairies are being rounded up to meet needs of liberated Europe. Of the 200,000 animals roaming free in this great area, many will be shipped abroad to replace war losses in the war-torn areas. This herd, 1,000 strong, heads for the corral. And undesirable animals are segregated. Most of the remainder will be included in this shipment for Belgium. From the New World, a contribution to the well-being of the old. to Washington is American Ambassador Braden, outspoken opponent of Argentina's military dictatorship, now named Assistant Secretary of State. Of Argentina's populace, Braden says,
I would hope that the American people understand that the Argentinos are genuinely democratic and sincerely our friends.
The Argentina Mr. Braden left behind was the scene just a few days before of an overwhelming demonstration in Buenos Aires against the totalitarian regime of strongman Colonel Juan Peron that has ruled the country for more than 2 years. Basta, enough, was the theme of this Liberty Day, as 500,000 men and women of all classes and political parties linked arms to defy Peron's official warning and call for free elections and a democratic Argentina. Many of these demonstrators were later jailed, but the people of Argentina are not likely to give up easily now. Colonel Peron and President Farrell, Argentina's military bosses, have suppressed freedom of speech and continued to imitate fascist techniques despite the growing antagonism of Argentina's people. Only their goose-stepping army still supports them. Today, as Argentina's populace demands a restoration of democracy, the world awaits the inevitable outcome. Into New York Harbor comes a prize of war, the luxury liner Europa. Once the pride of Germany, she is now a United States troop transport ship. And as she arrives at dusk past the New York City skyline, she brings 4,000 jubilant American soldiers back to their homes. A federal marshal takes over the 50,000-ton Europa. She is now to fly the Stars and Stripes and to carry many another veteran back from war. Greeted by his 11-year-old son, Lieutenant Colonel Devereux, Commandant of Marines at Wake Island, comes home after nearly 4 years of prison. During that time, the colonel's wife and mother had died. A homecoming tinged with sorrow for the heroic defender of Wake Island. Colonel Devereux receives the Navy Cross from Undersecretary of the Navy Gates for his heroic defense of Wake Island early in the war. At San Francisco, anxious relatives press forward. Big transports are flying in 80 United States servicemen freed from Japanese prisons. Years of hardship and bad treatment in confinement are now at an end for these men.